Thank you all for tuning in and joining me for this month's astrological weather report. As this year begins, and this year ends, excuse me, and 2021 begins, many people are asking what the future holds. I'm not a fortune teller. I am, however, an astrological intuitive. We don't have to be an astrologer or an intuitive, which is something I think we can all develop in order to understand the world around us. We can learn everything we need to know about someone or something just by observing them. A corollary to this is that we should not judge anyone or anything by what they say, what they do, or what they seem to be. We can only judge them by their effects. The point is that the words and actions that we are hearing and observing around us are having a traumatic effect on us, which is an Aquarian Uranian dynamic. In my opinion, their purpose is to instill and accelerate a major evolutionary pulse on the planet. We are currently passing through liminal space and time, whose core frequency is the advancement of human potentials. We can suffer through this, we can just survive, or we can thrive. In my work and personal life, I am seeing all three. We are about to be inundated with a dramatic surge in Aquarian energy. Is this revolutionary impulse going to make us or break us? The next lunar month began with an experiential Sagittarius solar eclipse yesterday and a healing or wounding Chiron station direct tomorrow. Chiron works his magic by bridging the gap between Uranus and Saturn, which are both critically active in 2021. The year ends with a potential pandemonium as Eris stations direct at 23 degrees Aries, just as it did last January on the day COVID first emerged, and will again on the same date in 2022 and 2023. Eris works through cataclysm. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. As human beings, we learn through crisis and direct emotional experience, the bailiwicks of both Pluto and Eris. We are about to have a modern experience of the mythical narrows that Odysseus experienced on his journey home. Please do not shoot me or troll me. I am just the messenger. So this is an overview of the lunar cycle for January, and this is what we're going to look at. I'm going to unpack each one of these aspects as we move through this presentation. And you'll see that we're starting off in Sagittarius, Sun in Sagittarius with the lunar eclipse yesterday. Today, Venus ingress, I'm sorry, I said Chiron, it's tomorrow, Chiron is today. Venus ingresses Sagittarius today, as well as Chiron stations direct at 4 degrees of Aries. In a couple of days, we're going to see both Saturn and Jupiter ingress Aquarius. Saturn has been there before. We're going to talk about that a little bit today. And then we have the winter solstice on December 21st, which is the darkest day of the year, but it is also the return of the light. And we can kind of hold on to that and hope that light is coming back into our world, even as we speak. We will see the Jupiter conjunct Saturn on the 21st as well at the solstice. I'm sure that if you are paying attention to astrology, you have already read a myriad of reports and forecasts and descriptions of that event. I'm going to give you my own as I see it. I'm going to add to the collection. And then we're going to have a Mars making first a conjunct to Eris and then a square to Pluto, which from my perspective is quite important. Pallas Athena will be the first of the outer planets to square Uranus, which is the major event of next year. And then Mars will ingress Taurus and Venus will ingress Capricorn. And the lunar month is going to end with Eris stationing direct on January 10th. And as I said, is exactly as it did last year, also in January. And last year it was the day that COVID was discovered. Anyone with planets in the last decan of the cardinal signs or the first decan, 10 degrees, the last 10 degrees or the first 10 degrees of those signs are going to feel this most intensely. Excuse me. So these are the solar transits. I'm not going to go through all the charts for these because they're basically a one-day event, though they do carry out across the month. I don't want to belittle them or diminish them, but there just isn't time. At some point, we have to draw the line as to what we can address. But as you see, the transits also begin with the solar eclipse yesterday. The sun trined Eris yesterday as well, and yesterday the House of Representatives certified the Electoral College votes for the United States. That's a very positive thing in terms of finally recognizing that Joseph Biden is going to was elected as our next president. Um, I don't want to go any further with that because I believe that this country is so polarized that any event is going to have a serious light and a serious shadow effect, and aftershocks. So it remains to be seen, though. As we go through this month's transits, I think you will see what I'm seeing. You don't necessarily have to agree with me. That's okay, but I have to call it like I see it. On the 19th, the Sun will conjunct Mercury. It's the Mercury superior conjunction at its greatest elongation from the Earth. Mercury will leave the night sky and emerge as a morning star within a short period of time. And then we have the winter eclipse that I spoke about, the longest day of the year. And then as the month ends and we move into January, the sun is going to square Chiron and trine Uranus, and then trine Vesta and Eris. And we're going to see a combination of all these archetypes of Chiron, Uranus, Vesta, and Eris expressed through the sun. We're going to see perhaps wounding and healing. The vaccine just became available today in the United States, and elsewhere in the world. It's already being distributed. Sun trine Uranus certainly is going to exhibit a wide range of individual expression. And again, there's going to be a pretty wide spectrum of what that's going to look like, as well as Vesta's authenticity. And the square to Eris certainly has the potential to stir things up. So just to take a look at the eclipse that happened yesterday, it was only visible across the southern tip of Chile. And it's a common meme that basically the intensity that is felt down here on Earth is relative to its visibility. And most of us did not have visibility of it. It was invisible to us, but it still had its impact long term. We're going to see this final eclipse of this season and of this year play out over the next 6 months. It's part of Saros cycle 142, corresponding back to December 4th of 2002. And at that time, there was a fire trine in the chart. The sun was balsamic to Pluto in Sagittarius, in Capricorn. And it trined, it was a mutual reception to Jupiter in Leo, which was stationed on that day. And it was trining Eris, who was retrograde. There were 3 major events that I found in history. Homeland Security was established, and that was huge. And it really is still, we're seeing new versions of that really playing out. It's not quite as official, but it's about structured power. And I'm going to address structured power when we get to the Jupiter Saturn conjunction. But it's about enforcing authority and about a whole new wave of authority being exercised here in the United States. At the same time, the U.S. withdrew from the anti-ballistic missile treaty with the USSR, which again is not really a positive event from my perspectives. It kind of threw things out of balance. And in 2002, the elections gave the GOP control of the Senate, and that is one of the things that we are still struggling with. It impacted the entire tenure of Barack Obama. It was only the first 90 days, actually, of his tenure that he was able to get anything done. And it's also what we're looking at today. The runoff election in Georgia that's actually ongoing. They're having their early voting right now. could change this tremendously, but it still remains to be seen how this is going to play out. So this solar eclipse, with the sun and moon conjoining, conjunct the south node, there's a sense of renewal as new thinking merges. But the thinking, again, is both progressive and regressive. Both of those narratives are going to be carried forward, and quite forcefully. Sagittarius is an experiential sign. It's an active expression of personality and of life force, individual life force. So we can expect these narratives to really be embedded with a lot of ego and self-importance on both sides of the aisle. And we're going to see a pulling free or retrenchment of old beliefs. This is the South Node that has been connected to. And also a last quarter trine to Mars. There'll be a crisis of bringing the dreams and visions down to earth. That Sagittarius is taking the ideas and what we have received perhaps in dreams, because Jupiter used to be the ruler of Pisces. It's still about visions and dreams. It's still about what comes to us and connects us to that which is greater than ourselves. And combined with this last quarter square to Neptune, which is a crisis in consciousness, it's how do we make these dreams real? How do we actually actualize, it's a Sagittarius word, the dreams that we're having and the visions that we're having? I'm calling it a crisis of authenticity with the square to Vesta in Virgo. We're needing to make choices that are faithful to our beliefs and to our personal authenticity. And we can begin to actualize a more honest approach to health regimens. The opportunities are going to be there with this disseminating trine to Hygeia. The disseminating trine wants to really spread the opportunity, out so that it's working, so that it becomes, again, an active process rather than just in the stage of development. Also today, we have Venus ingressing Sagittarius as well. And so our priorities are going to be focused on remedies that provide natural self-healing. And this is a disseminating trine to Chiron, also stationing direct. There's a new deep sense of commitment to what is true as Venus separates from a conjunction to Juno. Juno is our commitments, and it's a very, very intense degree with Juno at 29 degrees of Scorpio. Clearly that Juno is digging in and bearing down and expressing her own power, which she may feel has been taken from her in some way. This can be a difficult aspect as old losses and betrayals are going to linger. And this transit is going to focus on what correlates to our own personal truth. And again, personal truth is a very wide spectrum where it's not ultimate truth. It's not the Hermetic principles. It's what each of us personally believes to be true. And that's a hard thing to shake. Once you believe something, and we're seeing people who are literally ready to fight to the death, and hurt other people to make their truth dominant. Sagittarius can be restless. So it exhibits wanderlust. So there can be a restlessness in our relationships as well. So, pay attention to, how you're feeling in your relationships with the people you live with, your family, your friends. Don't drift away too far. Remember that, we need others. We can't be lone wolves, especially at this time. And this quarantine may have have the sense of that doing that to us by separating us and isolating us, to a great degree. It's Sagittarius, so we can feel drawn to the natural world and to find homeostasis, to find balance, and by living according to natural law. With Venus and Ceres both at this crescent square. The crescent is a struggle. The crescent aspect is not an easy aspect. It's the first point of past the new phase where the actualizing process is beginning, and it's a struggle to make it happen. And it's about recognizing that we're not just we're not just flesh and bones. We are connected to the natural world just as much as the trees and our pets and everything around us. And when we lose that connection is when all of the imbalances can overtake us. So Chiron direct at 4 degrees of Aries, basically 5 degrees of Aries. Outer world events are going to evoke homeopathic responses within us that can heal our psychological and emotional wounds. And to a great degree, what's really happening in our outer world is a homeopathic event. We're seeing these crises and these difficult people, difficult actions, difficult ideas, and it's a homeopathic remedy because it is, like heals like, which is the principle of homeopathy, where it's drawing out those same misogynistic, patriarchal, xenophobic, the whole litany of what's happening to us that needs to be healed. And so, Chiron is doing this. It's drawing all this out, and so we're going to see it come out so it can be healed. This is a last quarter square, which again is a difficult junction because it's moving towards the end of the cycle, and there's tremendous pressure to really resolve all of the things. It's not quite balsamic, but it's to resolve what it is that we've been working on and really to make it happen. There's a magnetic pole that's Venus of natural law, and the natural world is facilitated and intensified. And I touched on that with Venus and Sagittarius itself. And with the trine to Chiron, it's going to intensify that and pull it out and actually give us opportunities and actual life events and situations where we can actually work with this. And opportunities are also going to open up for deepened commitments to our overall health, and that's Juno and Scorpio. Scorpio doesn't compromise. Neither does Juno. She was quite, her fidelity, was renowned, but she would not compromise. And one of the things she wouldn't compromise was her commitment to Zeus, regardless of what he did. And we kind of have to hold on to that and understand that regardless of what bumps us upside the head, we need to stay committed to really what's important to us. And this is, again, it's a disseminating trine to Chiron, so it's going to be about our health. It's going to be about our wounds, and are we the wounder or the woundee? Which side of the fence are we on? There are going to be deeply defended memories of wounding because of the struggle to maintain a self-reliant sense of safety. This is Black Moon Lilith, and again, this is a non-compromising energy. My analogy for Black Moon Lilith is Thelma and Louise. Those two women would rather drive over the cliff at the end of their adventure than go back to the suffering life that they had escaped from. So we can expect, the work is cut out for us. Saturn ingresses Aquarius, and Saturn, I'll touch on this. Saturn was, well, I don't want to jump ahead. Let's just kind of look at, what Aquarius is about. Just throw some keywords out there to keep in mind. It's air, so it's mental. We've got Saturn, which is Earth in a mental sign. Not necessarily a comfortable place to be. It's a fixed sign, which could work very well for Saturn, and it's yang, it's outgoing, and Saturn is a yang energy. Is a yin energy. So again, there are these discomforts elementally, and in terms of polarity and modality that are going to be difficult to navigate, perhaps. Aquarius is about our individuation, or individuality, its objectivity. Aquarius wants to get at arm's length with everything so that it can understand it. It's very mental. It wants to just push back so that it can get some distance and be able to reason with something unemotionally. But it's also rebellion, and we know that. Discovered Uranus discovered at the time of the American and French revolutions. And the rebellion that creates alienation, and to feel alienated, exiled in some way, mentally exiled. What Uranus and Aquarius really do is they interrupt, they disrupt and erupt, all the rupt words, if you would, to break up the crystallization that occurred, previously in Capricorn, to get us unstuck so that we can begin to shift and make some different choices about, who we are, what we are, where we're going, and really what's happening, and to kind of get free of a consensus mindset, we're lemmings just, walking off the edge of a cliff. It's about tribe and community. So we're going to see, certainly as Aquarius unfolds, I think we're going to see more self-organizing, organizations and groups of people coming together around what it is that they believe and hold on to, and how they see the world around them. Aquarius is trauma. Again, that the result of the interruptions and disruptions, and it's Rick Tarnas who has gifted us with the concept of Prometheus. That it's a very Promethean archetype. Prometheus stole fire from Zeus and gave it to mankind. He was the agent of mankind, and it entirely changed everything in terms of human development. Once they had fire, they could cook food, and they could sustain themselves, and thrive, not just survive. Fire was also a technology. Uranus is technology, so it's a very, very apt correlation. So at this ingress, we've got Jupiter. So we've got Saturn. Excuse me, we're getting a little ahead here. Saturn, it was, in his native sign. Saturn in Capricorn has held authority over Pluto since 2008, since Jupiter was in Capricorn in 2019 and Saturn since 2017. So Saturn has really been the undercurrent of all these outer planets since 2008, really, as Pluto entered his sign. And he's about to leave that native sign. And it's an interesting transition because mythologically, he's moving back into the sign that he used to rule, number one, archetypically, before Uranus was discovered. But he was deposed. He's going back, meeting up with his father, who he deposed, and Jupiter, who deposed him. So there's all kinds of ancestry here that could be come out of the woodwork to some degree, that will emerge as the sins of the father, so to speak, are revisited, and we begin to see occurrences that are very familial in some sense, and paternal and patriarchal. But it is the patriarchy that's getting healed. So again, in essence, this is a homeopathic event where all of the patriarchy that we have struggled with literally for perhaps 6,000 years is all coming out and being exposed. It's like if you dig up the roots of a tree, the tree dies. So the roots are getting sunlight. Saturn transited Aquarius from March to the end of June of this year, and not incoincidentally, it was in March that the first impacts of COVID began to be felt. It's when the quarantines and the shutdowns and everything started to happen. And now he's back again, and he will be here until 2023. The goddess of wisdom, Pallas Athena, carries her owl, which is wisdom, in one hand, and her spear, which is her authority and her power, above her, as her messages are distributed through the world. She is again part of this complex of outer planets, and we've a lot of talk has been spent. A lot of words have been spent on talking about Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto. But if you go back and you look at your ephemeris and trace the last year or so, you will see that Pallas Athena has been weaving back and forth in between all of these outer planets in Capricorn as she retrograde and then turned direct again. She's met up with all of them a couple of times. and she is literally informing them. Pallas Athena informs us. She is the octave transformer, is called, between our higher mind Uranus and our lower mind Mercury. She's able to help us pull down those things that seem to come to us out of left field and make them rational and make them somehow practical. So we need to pay attention to anything that comes to us out of left field, anything that seems, oh, that's impossible. I can't do that. There's no way that can happen. Don't deny anything just because it seems implausible, because as you can see, we are passing through a time when all the things that we thought were implausible are coming to pass. Structured power, and again, I'm gonna touch on this a little bit more when we talk about Saturn and Jupiter coming together at the conjunction. But this is structured power, and this is what we're seeing in the world. In our country, the Republican Party is very structured. It's the Democratic Party which really has been unstructured and has been at a loss, trying to play a game of catch up. The right is so far ahead of the left because the right is structured, and that structured power is now coming to bear. They have been working on this for years. I don't want to take a lot of time to talk about it, but there are a lot of facts that have come out recently about how many important people in the country, corporate leaders, political leaders, have all, I don't want to call it a conspiracy, but they have all kind of gotten together and recognized that if you pour money into politics, you can control politics, that you can empower yourself and change the way the political mood is moving. And there's no question that's exactly what has happened. People like the Koch brothers, that's exactly what this has happened. So as Saturn moves through Aquarius, and this is, the next 7 years, structured power is going to try and expand its reach. It's not going to recede. It's not just going to go back, into the shadows and say, okay, I have enough power. I'm not going to do that anymore. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. We have to pay attention to what's unfolding and take back our own power. It's the only way that we have any hope of overcoming this movement, this momentum, political momentum that has already been in place. And we did it. We did it with this election. There's no question. It's a perfect example of what can happen. But we can't just sit back and say, okay, we got Joe Biden. Again, I don't want to get into the politics. He was not my choice, but I certainly would take him over the alternative. A new level of awareness is opening, but it's going to require great effort to substantiate it. And this is a disseminating trine to Sedna and Taurus. The toxins have been spilled all over the planet, emotional toxins, physical toxins. The responsibility is initiated, and it initiates the cleanup. We have to take responsibility for all of them. And this is the last quarter square to Eris. To me, the outer planet squares of Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto to Eris were the primary undercurrent of 2020. It's one of the things I'm going to talk about in our overview next week. I'm going to talk about Pluto in particular. I think it's where the responsibility lies. It can be challenges. This transit can be very challenging because it exposes and demands responsibility to all the unresolved situations. There's no, this is a choke chain mentality. We can no longer say, okay, it'll get fixed, or it's going to get better, or somebody's going to come to fix us. If we don't do it, and we don't do it now, nothing's going to change. We're witnessing an archetypal, powerful archetypal doubling as the density of Saturn struggles to navigate through the breezy nature of Uranus, who was the modern ruler of Aquarius. But Saturn is the co-ruler, and there's still many astrologers who consider Saturn to be the sole ruler of Aquarius. It's going to be, Aquarius is getting doubled down here. And responsibility or despondency are going to define the scope of our emotional expression. I don't think that there's going to be a lot of exhilaration. I think that that what we're going to do is it's going to come out as responsibility or despondency. The Capricorn moon applies to a balsamic conjunction to Saturn at this ingress. And, the ingresses are important because the ingress is the birth moment of the planet in this sign. All the planets are going to move away. The moon certainly is, going to move very quickly and come around many times, but it's this template, it's this frequency that is stamped into the transit at this onset that is persistent. The our efforts can feel thwarted. Mars is in a crescent square to Saturn, supplying, so which is difficult. It's not a first quarter square. It's crescent, and one of the key words for the crescent is it's a struggle. So we can feel thwarted to progress through what's going to feel like an emotional quagmire. And compression and intense unforeseen pressures. This is only 5 days before the Great Conjunction. So already we're going to start to feel what this conjunction is going to deliver, 5 days from now, next week. And again, this is Jupiter, 29 degrees. 29 degrees is a critical, very critical point in the cycle, because it is the final degree. And it cannot cross the threshold from 29 degrees of Capricorn to 0 degrees of Aquarius until all of the issues that were slated in the Capricorn transit are resolved. Nothing can be left undone. So it's a very, very powerful balsamic point, if you would, where there's a struggle to get this closed. And what has become crystallized is threatened. Earthquakes and landslides are possible physically and metaphorically, as Saturn applies to last quarter square to Uranus. Again, that last quarter square requiring to begin to really, make it to the finish line. But with Saturn and Uranus in Taurus, Uranus is in Taurus and Saturn is in Aquarius, but Saturn is still Earth. Saturn is still, the firmament beneath our feet. So we have to, consider that we're going to see more Earth changes. Excuse me. On the 19th, Jupiter is going to enter Aquarius, Uranus's sign. And Mars is in a crescent square to Jupiter at the ingress. This is an impulsive individual expression leads to sudden rebellious outbreaks that are increasingly frequent and violent. Our news is just filled with this. Just yesterday, 4 people were stabbed in Portland. I believe it was Portland, between the pro-Trump and the pro-Biden people. And there is no sign of any pacification on either side. Not the Antifas are quite as violent, but they're quite just as committed, and they are ready to do whatever it needs to be done to hold their ground. Compression, intense, unforeseen pressures. This is just 3 days before the Great Conjunction. Same as Saturn. It's the same energy as Jupiter applies to this partile balsamic conjunction. It's still applying to the conjunction to Saturn. We're going to see increasing disruptions to normalcy, and it's going to weigh more heavily on our ongoing emotional matrix of emotional and social pressures, as Jupiter applies to a disseminating square to Uranus. And authoritarian power continues to unfold and expand, and new restrictions are going to elicit new levels of emotional strain as Jupiter separates from Pluto. Pallas Athena's messages carry authority and power from Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto in tow. New commands are issued and new strategies emerge. But again, these new strategies are not necessarily going to be progressive. We have to bear in mind that this is going to happen in both directions. Rage and resentment confront a perception of the authoritative repression of personal freedoms and suppression of normalcy. And rage and resentment are, as Black Moon Lilith's, pride and joy, if you would. Non-compliance is going to be confronted with official power and authority. There's not going to be any pleasant, responses on either side. The actions are going to be forceful, and the responses are going to be equal, if not greater, in force. New consciousness and a new wave of insight, strategies, and self-authority are potentiated as Jupiter separates from a first quarter trine to Sedna. Sedna brings consciousness to whatever it touches. It awakens us. It has to, again, these outer, certainly these trans-Neptunians especially, don't work on their own. It's not like Mercury and Venus where, there are personal planets. They're not personal at all. They send us their energy. Their energy is stepped down through their connection to our personal planets and to Jupiter and Saturn, which are, are in the social sphere. But with Sedna led to the discovery of Eris. Eris had shown up actually 2 years earlier on a film, but because she moved so slowly, Mike Brown didn't realize that it was a trans-Neptunian object. He thought it was a distant star. And 2 years later, when they captured Sedna, they saw that it had actually moved. So she was responsible. She brought consciousness to the discovery of Eris. Eris is my favorite, my favorite topic. The chaos and disruptions of normalcy increases as Jupiter separates from the last quarter square to Eris. And again, these are one of the squares that we have been experiencing all year. Jupiter expands whatever it touches, and Eris is responsible. Eris is what's causing the suffering. But, again, she is the evolutionary pulse. She is the growth through crisis. She is the direct emotional experiences that we need to wake up. So the great conjunction, 0 degrees Aquarius, 28 minutes. I said this, I'm going to repeat it. It's important to note that Jupiter and Saturn are towing Pluto in Capricorn close behind them. This Pluto transit has altered life on Earth since 2008. Okay, so and Pluto is still in Capricorn. She's not going to he's not going to leave Capricorn for another couple of years. So we're still seeing a lot of this going to play out, even though we're going to have this Aquarius energy. And again, Aquarius brings us freedom and individuality and the individuation that we need, but it does it in a way that is quite disruptive. When Jupiter and Saturn come together, there's an interaction between the nature of what is being formed and the intensity and density of that form itself. In other words, Saturn is going to shape Jupiter. It's going to add its form to it. It's going to add a particular shape and template, overlay it with a template, and it's going to add to its intensity and its density as the two of them combined. Jupiter and Saturn correlate to the dynamics of expansion and contraction. Probably know that, I've heard that. Jupiter opens the channel for the most potent self-actualized life force to be projected out into the world as the experience of self-creativity and personality. It's the last of the fire triad of self-actualization. We're born in Aries. We come into the world eyes wide open, total impulse, instinct, not knowing if somebody will be there to catch us. In Leo, we grab a hold of our lunar ego, our lunar self-image that we've come to recognize, and we begin to project it out into the world. But it's in Sagittarius that personality shows up in the social sphere. The example I like to use is perhaps Picasso. If Picasso had painted all his work in his own basement and stayed there, nobody would ever have seen it. But he was born with the gift in Aries, and he recognized it in himself in Leo, and it was in Sagittarius that his work now hangs in museums and in art galleries and in museums. That's where the expression shows up. And so through Jupiter, through this Sagittarian energy, we're going to see all this personality and self-actualized energy really coming into the world in a big way. Jupiter was the planetary ruler of Pisces prior to the discovery of Neptune in 1846. And so he holds the inner resources of the higher mind. He is also intuition and visions and dreams. So we're going to all have these experiences. So, pay attention, to what comes to you out of left field. Pay attention to what, this intuitive hit that you may get. Into somebody who's very much smarter than myself told me many years ago, if you want to develop your intuition, trust it. It's the only way you'll ever get to know it and develop it. So work with that. If you get an intuitive hit, hold on to it. Don't dismiss it. Doesn't mean jump on it, like crazy, but just don't let it go and see how it unfolds. Give it some breath to work with, and the same with your visions, and the same with dreams that you have at night, because we are going to all have more vivid, lucid dreams. In mundane astrology, or the astrology of nations, Jupiter correlates to the judicial system, the courts and judges. It covers religion and religious leaders, and it corresponds to the wealth of the nation. So this just alludes to the areas of our lives that we're going to see activated, and we're already seeing it. We're seeing the economic tumult. Right, the market surged again today, but all through 2020, they plunged a couple of times more than they did in 1929. Record falls and record highs. It's kind of like somebody who's totally apoplectic. And the same thing with all the focus on religious and religious leaders and the judicial system. And the judicial system, I believe, is going to be the most remarkable of all, because Donald Trump is learning the hard way that he cannot depend on the chief justices and the justices of the Supreme Court that he's appointed, and even the lower federal court judges. They march to a different drum. They answer to a higher, and so it changes the whole landscape. This great conjunction occurs every 20 years, and it marks the chapters of our lives. Just as the 12-year cycle marks the chapters of our individual lives, the collective lives and our individual lives. And again, in mundane astrology, it's about the elderly, the national death rate, hello, epidemics, hello, public sorrow and disappointment, hello. Don't need any elaboration on that. Of the most important and impactful transits in 2021 are Jupiter and Saturn in Aquarius to Uranus. And this is really what's going to shake our world next year. We've had these great conjunctions that occurred over the last 12 months. Well, now, as these planetary cycles unfold, they're going to be squared in a square aspect with Uranus. Jupiter and Saturn are going to square them. And as I said, Uranus interrupts and disrupts. It's going to add a very powerful evolutionary, revolutionary, disruptive energy to these cycles as they unfold this year. And this aspect alone is extremely dynamic as the two planetary bodies work through an elemental crisis. There's an elemental crisis here between Earth and air. Earth is static and fixed and immovable, and air is fluid, mutable, and intangible. So it's like the irresistible force meeting the immovable object. Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius, overlaying the need to destructure the crystallized forms that the earth signs create. So there's only, there's actually 4 aspects here, but at the ingress, there's really only three major aspects to Mars, and Mars, Uranus, and Pluto. And so, there's a crescent square from Mars to Jupiter and Saturn. Our individualism is going to incur. And I've alluded to this, the way that we're expressing ourselves in the world, our personalities, or the way we're self-actualizing and individuating is going to increase. We're being quarantined, we're being separated and isolated. And that alone, with nothing else, has the tendency to cause us to really hunker down within ourselves and to kind of morph, in the direction that we go when we don't have that many outer influences except pressures. And crises are going to erupt as consensus and authority clash. And consensus is changing. Consensus is not necessarily going to be the authority of the social state, which we generally assume it to be. There's a new consensus that's developing that seems to want to have nothing to do with what we call authority. So it's something that we need to watch. This is the last quarter square to Uranus, and as I said, radical self-empowerment. As Jupiter Saturn separate from a new phase conjunction to Pluto, they're empowered. They're pulling Pluto and Capricorn behind them. Pluto in Saturn's sign. Pluto authorizing them to be self-empowered, and this is the way that they're going to go forward. On December 22nd, Mars is going to conjunct Eris retrograde. This has already happened twice in 2020. This is the third pass. It happened in August and October of this year. And in those months, two explosions kill over 220 people, injure thousands, and severely damage the port in Beirut, Lebanon. An estimated 300,000 people were left homeless. And a United Nations Rights Council fact-finding mission formally accused the Venezuelan government of crimes against humanity. This is truly Eris and Mars, including cases of killings, torture, violence against political opposition, and disappearances since 2014. And Typhoon Goni, I'm not sure how you say that, made a landfall in the Philippines, becoming the strongest landfalling tropical cyclone in history, displacing hundreds of thousands of people and killing dozens of people in the region. So, what we're seeing again is we're seeing climate change, we're seeing social changes, and we're seeing, basically conflagrations of all kinds. And that's Mars, that's Eris, that's Aries, that's this whole ball of wax. And this, 23-degree point of Aries that they're on, again, Eris is camped here for basically for 4 years. It goes back and forth over it and over it and over it and over it. Just keeps drilling down. It's kind of like throwing salt into the wounds, a festering wound. It just kind of making it worse. So as I said, it's explosions and fires and eruptions and erratic self-centered behavior. We have some and lawlessness. We have, example of that I really don't want to go into. And this is the partile new phase conjunction to Eris from Mars. And authority clamps down on individual expression. The sun separates from it, disseminating out of sign trine to Mars. And collective narratives are going to be suppressed and self-narratives are depressed. And Mercury, also in Capricorn, separates from a disseminating out of sign trine to Mars. Collective priorities struggle to find consensus among polarized beliefs. Venus is our beliefs. As she separates from a disseminating sesqui-square, a square and a half, a crisis situation to Mars as well. And impulsiveness increases as personal behavior becomes more erratic and restless. As Mars applies to a crescent square to Saturn, individual expression is suppressed by authoritarian power. A crisis erupts between the sharing of power between authority and the people at large. In other words, you see what I'm alluding to. There's going to be struggles here of power, of having our power taken away, having to give up our power, and having an authoritative power of not seen in recent times, expressed in front of us. And this is Mars quarter square to Pluto. Which will actually come up. It's applying here at the conjunction to Eris. In the next couple of slides, we're going to see that it actually perfects. And new choices are possible regarding proactive health. This is an opportunity. But again, it's the crises that are exposing all of the difficulties and weaknesses in our healthcare systems worldwide. And unfortunately, I think the United States is the worst of the lot. New Zealand just declared themselves virus-free. That's far from what's going on here. The numbers are spiking. There are over 300,000 new cases 2 days ago. And even with only a 1% fatality rate, that means that 3,000 people, about 3,000 people die on average So somewhere between 2 and 3,000 people a day are dying in the United States. So here we see on the 23rd that Mars then squares Pluto at 23 degrees of Aries and Capricorn. It's already squared Pluto 7 times in 2020. So including in this event, there are going to be 8 more perfections through 2022. This is an ongoing event. This is not a singularity. It's not restricted to the year that's passed. It's not restricted to the year that's coming. This is going to happen for another 2 years. I'm calling it a year of chaos and discord. The last quarter square from Pluto and Capricorn to Eris and Aries, it's the hand grenade in a steel box undercurrent that has brought all of the suffering in 2020. Mars has been the flashpoint of all of the events that have occurred. Mars transit to Eris to Pluto has brought all these things into live events. The hand grenade went off, and Mars perfects to this new phase conjunction again on December 23rd in 2020. So this is the last pass this year, but there will be more. So again, explosions, fires, eruptions, erratic self-behavior. These are many of the same things. Just a couple of days earlier, when Mars squared Eris, we're going to see the same energies because Mars is now in a partile new phase conjunction to Eris as it squares Pluto. And a crisis erupts between the sharing of power between authority and the people. And we're seeing that. There's a total disconnect between what either of the two consensuses, and we now have 2 consensuses in this country, and a polarized government trying to somehow straddle them in between. Authority clamps down. Capricorn Sun, clearly authority separates from a disseminating trine to Mars. Trines are not necessarily good. There's no such thing as good or bad in our lives or in aspects. It's how we respond or react to the event when it occurs. But Mars and in Aries in the Sun in Capricorn again is it's not a trine, excuse me. It's I think it is a trine because it's an out of sign trine. So it's difficult. It's actually they're squared by element. You're saying it's a trine, but it's a very difficult placement. Collective narratives are suppressed. Self narratives are depressed. As Mercury in Capricorn separates from a disseminating trine to Mars in Aries, and collective priorities struggle to find consensus among polarized beliefs. It's what we're trying to do. We're trying to pull back together again, but it could be that the divide is too great, and we're falling into the chasm, to the abyss in between. Impulsiveness increases as personal behavior becomes more erratic and restless, with a crescent square to Jupiter from Mars. And individual expression is suppressed. As I said, new choices are possible regarding health. And the collateral effect of Mars, Pluto, and Eris will be to drive a revolutionary path forward. And this is something we have to hold on to and not let go of. Symptoms are the attempt of the body to heal. And what we're seeing are more than symptoms. We're seeing an actual outbreak of disease. The body is the body politic, the body economic, the body social is already riddled with disease. It's not just a symptom anymore, but it's still an attempt to heal. This is to heal this. This isn't to just punish us or make us feel worse or wipe out all of life on Earth. It's not what this is about. So Pallas is the first of the outer planets. Actually, she's an asteroid, excuse me, but the first archetype really to square Uranus. She leads the way. I mean, that's what she does. As I said, she stands there with her owl, in one hand and her spear raised above her, probably shouting a battle cry. Her messages are going to get louder, and she's going to create a choiceless awareness of our direction forward as she separates from the lunar north node. and we're struggling, or the lunar north node separates from her. We're struggling with ideas and beliefs from the past that are keeping us stuck. We just can't get rid of the past, and it's understandable because this stretches back, maybe 400 years in our country, 250 years, and 400 years, and maybe 6,000 years in some ways. We are reliving all of the issues that have been carried forward as we move through this great cycle. In the forecast that I just wrote and put on Amazon, I talk about the cycle of the yugas and the precession of the equinoxes. We're moving through very long-term cycles, and we are carrying with us all of the ills and the corpses. We carry corpses in our wagon from the past. An attitude of hunker down. Black moon Lilith separates from the first quarter square to Pallas. We're going to hunker down. We're going to, we're going to want to retreat and just hold on to whatever, sense of stability and sanity and normalcy we seem to have in order to survive. And we're going to become more conscious one way or another. We're going to go kicking and screaming, or we're going to go proactively. These outer planets, Pluto especially, Pluto, puts us in front of the wall and says to us, you're going over that wall. Do you want to go head first or feet first? This is the place we are in our development. The Mercury-Uranus octave transformer delivers some potentially discomforting news. We may not like, what we're hearing, what needs to be done, but that doesn't mean that we can't go forward and work with it. We're going to have to take our medicine, as distasteful as it may be. And the tone and volume of internal messages are going to be intensified and increased. We're going to get these inner understandings and inner perspectives that help us, see the bigger picture. That's what Pallas does. She shows us the big picture, because once you see the big picture, you know how all the little pieces fit together. The inner messages we're receiving could take on or will take on a more somber tone, and we're being strongly reminded where our self-care falls short. We can't, expect somebody to come and save us. The Hopis told us back in 2001 that nobody's coming to save us. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. Mars is going to ingress Taurus, so he's going to join Uranus in Venus's sign. And this is a crisis of self-awareness. Are the choices that we are making fulfilling what we need to survive and thrive? And this is the Libra moon applies to an out of sign gibbous opposition to Mars at the ingress. Have we taken responsibility for our self-reliance, or do we hold ourselves accountable for our political and social narratives, or are we just kind of following somebody else's lead? We have to really decide for ourselves what's important and work on it, even if we have to stand alone. Opportunities arise to prioritize and actualize personal values that reflect global concerns, as Venus applies to a disseminating trine to Mars. And it's a crisis of choices. Have we made collective choices that benefit our community, or have our choices been self-serving? This is Mars and Jupiter. This is about making responsible choices. What is solidified cracks. Difficult chasms open around us, limiting our choices and giving the decisions more weight. And it's a crisis of knowing. We have an inner sense of what we need to do, but there is resistance to moving. We can kind of feel stuck in Taurus. Mars applies to a crescent square to Pallas. So, we're getting the messages, but are we acting on them? Are we listening to what Pallas is telling us? Are we taking these concepts and strategies and understandings that we see and pulling them down into rationality? We're moving through a Gemini Sagittarius lunar nodal axis. It's about grounding and rationalizing and making practical and realistic the dreams and visions and understandings that we're getting. It's about the practicum. It's about doing the work. That's a Virgo word, but it's the mental work of Gemini, of actually having a rational plan. A, B, C, D. This is what we need to do. Choices are weighed down by being unable to let go of what has been lost, and surrogates for normalcy fall short of expectations. This is Ceres, Ceres, in her wanderings to find Persephone, landed a job as a handmaiden to a royal family to raise the royal child, and she tried to make that child immortal by holding it in the fire to replace Persephone. Well, the mother came along and was absolutely aghast at what she saw and threw Ceres out on her, Demeter out on her ear. But this is what some of us are doing, are finding these surrogates. I'm going to go buy a new car. I'm going to put in I'm going to do something to somehow distract myself from what I don't have in order to feel better about what's going on. But it's just a distraction. It's not going to change anything. It's not going to make anything better. It's really, it's going to be a short-lived satisfaction. So the year ends, as I said, with Eris stationing direct, and it's excuse me, the year begins, next year begins with Eris stationing direct. And just as it did in January of last year, it coincides with that same calendar date. And this combination of Eris stationing direct along the major Saturn-Pluto with a conjunction was responsible for the outbreak of COVID. Saturn and Pluto come together approximately every 30 years. So they happen with regularity. We've never had one like this. Why? You have to ask yourself, why was this year full of such suffering and chaos and discord and disruption and interruption? And it's because of Eris. And she's going to follow the same pathway in 2021 as she did last year, stationing direct in early January and stationing retrograde in July, and repeating the same process in 2022 and 2023. This is a long-term transit. At her station direct, she aspects just about every other point in the sky. The trine to the moon is going to accentuate the disruption to our sense of security. There will be increased focus and desire to retreat to family, loved ones, and emotional support networks. The moon's proximity to the Sagittarius lunar south node portends the reemergence, repeat of emotional experience of events from the past. And when the sun squared Eris last January, the World Health Organization, I said this, declared the outbreak of COVID-19 as a public health emergency. And this suggests that coronavirus will persist in its aggressive advance. This combination threatens to diminish life force, which is the basis of good health. I don't want to get into the vaccine thing. I don't want to be, categorized as an anti-vaxxer or a vaxxer. But if you go and you read about the history of viruses, vaccines, we're being oversold here. It's no panacea by any stretch of the imagination. And the first shot creates a lot of side effects. And unless you get the second shot, the first one doesn't work. So there's a great possibility that a lot of people will not even complete the protocol. It's not what everybody thinks it's going to be. Venus and Saturn present the opportunity for more responsibility regarding the spread of the virus. Again, it's going to push us back upon ourselves. A vaccine is a fix me mentality. We feel that we can eat whatever we want and go get a cholesterol drug. If we can't rely on somebody else to come and fix us. We have to fix ourselves. The necessity and opportunity for collective priorities to struggle with outer world circumstances that present restrictions to normalcy and the impediment of personal priorities. In other words, things are going to be tough going forward. We're going to be faced with priorities that we're being requested or demanded to do. One of the things that's going around is, instead of having your temperature taken when you go someplace, you're going to have to, show them your paperwork that you had the vaccine. I don't even want to go down that road at the moment. Pluto formed a last quarter square with Pluto 3 times in 2020 and will perfect, which is an exact same zodiac point, with Pluto twice more this year. There are 2 more Pluto squares to Eris. As Pluto continues to square Eris, we will witness the spread of coronavirus and the increase of the exercise of structured authoritarian power. Asteroid Vesta is about our sacred commitment to ourselves. It's about personal authenticity that we perceive in ourselves and in others. And we encounter difficult interactions with those who attempt to conceal their true motives and intentions. And we encounter conflicts within ourselves where our own intentions are thwarted either subconsciously by ourselves or deliberately by others. This is Vesta in an inconjunct to Eris, a gibbous inconjunct. Trying to at least get to the point where it's all out in the open. Crisis and commitment to personal truth. Eris generates situations that make us choose to either go forward or proverbially do it or get off the pot. Again, this is a no compromise, no turning back, Thelma and Louise kind of situation for us. It requires commitment, and it requires commitment to what our personal truths are. But those personal truths need to be aligned with natural law and universal truth, and that's the piece that's missing. But that's what's developing. That's what will come out of all of this, to recognize that we are connected to something much greater than ourselves, and that there are, quote, laws of the universe that are operative, in any millennium, in any place on Earth at any given time, that we have to begin to work with. Because if we're going to work with all this subjective stuff, we're going to go down the same road. I alluded to this. Pallas Athena shuttled back and forth across the paths of Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto throughout 2020, informing the great patriarchs and distributing the potential for greater understanding and wisdom as these outer planets conjoined. Pallas Athena carries this wisdom forward, urging us to realize that there are greater truths that these events infer. And she delivers a glimmer of hope that saner strategies and collective wisdom will prevail in the face of the perils and precipices laid out in our path by Eris. We have a choiceless awareness to heed the wisdom of Pallas as it correlates to strategy and seeing the big picture. And in spite of the difficult and sometimes deadly effects that Eris delivers, the challenges she presents are catalyzing our personal and collective growth forward toward a soul-intended destination. And these are her sextiles and trines to the lunar nodes. Of the 10 aspects of Eris station direct to the Sun, Venus, Saturn, Pluto, Pallas, Vesta, Juno, and the lunar nodes, 9 aspects are waning. 9 out of 10 are waning aspects, okay? And the disseminating phase, which most of these are, seek integration. And the last quarter squares demand our conscious attention to be paid to ongoing circumstances. We can no longer ignore at the cycle. It's the most, perhaps the most aware point in the cycle is this last quarter square. And the effects of this Eris archetype will persist throughout the year 2021 and into the foreseeable future as she continues to drill down into the zodiacal point of 23 Aries for the next 2 years. The lunar month is going to end as Venus ingresses Capricorn. And this can be also can be a difficult combination because Venus needs passion and Capricorn wants sobriety. Priorities are focused on what is practical and provides stabilities, and values that support consensus become paramount. And we seek relationship with what is older and wiser, not necessarily a bad thing. Venus stations direct again on December 19th, 2021 at 26 degrees Capricorn. Our priorities are focused on what is truly essential and to our own innate talents and abilities, as Venus applies to our trine to Mars and Aries. We're drawn to others who can responsibly help us express our individuality and purpose. We can be struggling with old wounds to our ego, and we can also be drawn to others who are more interested in helping themselves than helping us. Our responsibility to our own authority is challenged. There can be a disconnect with what we need to do for our own support. And the outer world events trigger inner experiences that make us more conscious of the values that we're actually prioritizing. What are the values that we're putting out in the world and acting on? So these are the important dates to watch. December 14th, which was yesterday, was the eclipse, which I said is going to play out over the next 6 months. Today, as Chiron stations direct, and Venus also ingresses. The 19th, the Great Conjunction. The 22nd is Mars conjunct Eris, still retrograde. And December 23rd, Mars squares Pluto. And then finally on January 10th, Eris stations direct. So here's the takeaway. We've all come through one of the most challenging years that any of us have experienced, perhaps the most challenging. It's safe to say that we're all hoping and praying that the worst is over. And this might be true in some ways as the year ends, but we need to recognize that everything unfolds in cycles in its own time. What began in January 2020 will continue to unfold as we move into 2021. The archetypal forces of Jupiter, Saturn, Pluto, Uranus, Pluto, and Eris have been set in motion and must now by necessity run their course toward their fated destination. We need to also remember that Neptune is navigating his own deep waters in Pisces through treacherous waters past mythic gatekeepers Charybdis and Scylla. What is our fate and destiny? We are healing the cultural toxins that have been exposed after centuries and in some cases millennia. If we have not yet become grounded in the earthly movements of Taurus and Capricorn, then surely the abundance of air that awaits us this coming year will continue to disperse the pieces and fragments of our lives. We are learning what is essential and what is not. Embrace whatever Virgo energy you may embody and whatever occupies your 6th house or whatever's on the cusp, that is there to support you in these times of critical personal and collective growth. It's going to be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's because it is not the end. This is Odysseus traversing Scylla and Charybdis, the great whirlpool that he either could have sucked him down in, or the multi-headed beast that just plucked some of his sailors right out of the ship from the cliffs above. I have just published a complete forecast for 2021. It's entitled the same as this talk. It's a complete review of what next year holds, and most importantly, the why of the outer planets, why they have been responsible for the suffering and anxiety. And all of the astrology is stepped down for the lay reader. So it's not just for astrologers, members of your family who maybe not know a lot of astrology can read this. And there are lots of narratives in it that really explain what this is all about. But most importantly, it reveals the opportunities and the remedies for our time, the time we're continuing to pass through. And it's either ebook or paperback up on Amazon. And I also want to encourage you to join me with Aaron Sullivan and Michael Bartlett and Mary Lynn LeBlanc on the day after Christmas. There's no movies to go to this year, guys. This is going to be a great talk. I just put a promo up on Friends of Evolutionary Astrology and on my website. The 4 of us just did this the other day, kind of give you a preview of what we're going to talk about. And this is the link. There are hot links in numerous places that you can click on. It's only $15. Your whole family can sit there and watch and attend for $15. You don't need individual tickets. I really encourage you to do it. Aaron's got some great stuff to say. So does Michael. I'm going to go through really what Eris has brought us since 2015. We know what happened in 2016, and lay this out from a much higher perspective, so that we can come to grips with it and understand it and get a hold of it and ride it rather than have it ride us. And in general, you can get my astrological weather reports here. They're on my website. Daily transits are on Facebook as they're significant transits. And come and see me if you would like to know how all of this is going to personally affect you. And I thank you so much for allowing me to rant today. Bless you all. Be safe and be well.
Daniel, thank you so much. Thank you so much for all of your forecasts throughout this year. And we're looking forward to catching you in 2021.
Thank you, Linda. I'm looking forward to it as well.
Okay.
We're in this together.
See you on December 26th.
See you then.
Bye.
Bye.